So we await news of our own Irish criminals that are out in Dubai, but the Italians have really moved quickly since Raffaele Imperiale was handed back. And this week, there is sentencing of over 200 years for a number of members of his group, including 15 for himself. So it's done and dusted. He's pleaded guilty. He's been jailed for 15 years. He's has been held in custody since he returned. So he's served a few years out of that. But he's also continuing to give evidence in the background to the magistrates who are investigating other cases.
Yeah, I mean, he's given 15 years and 9 months this week. His assets have been confiscated. He famously had this island, Taiwan is what it actually was, and this, man-made archipelago in Dubai well, is that right? Yeah. So they had, so he's handed that back. So he's all done and dusted. And in the meantime, his other associates like Ridwan Taji and many others that have come back to the UK as well, in the meantime, have gone through the courts and are serving their time. And we still await news of our own chaps.
Yeah. So Imperiale is he's the king rat of this total operation, because he's the only one out of them that has sort of gone Supergrass as such.
Yeah.
Ridwan Taghi fought the system, was ultimately jailed for a life term, really, or certainly the guts of it in the Netherlands. Has claimed he's going to challenge everything, he's going to appeal everything. Others from the super cartel have not indicated at all that they're going to grass or to rat.
No, I mean,
the underworld called it. But Imperiale has, and he's still got 15 years and 9 months, which sounds like a really hefty sentence to me for somebody who is going to turn in all his mates.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you look at the policing and the judicial process that mafia figures have in Italy over the last couple of decades, it's been a very much a relentless pursuit. Obviously, what happened at some point in Italy was that the mafia seemed to get on top of the justice system, and the justice system ultimately started to fight back. The Sicilian mafia went literally to war with the Italian state. They killed judges, carried out explosions. There was, there was a war, something similar than had been fought in Colombia by Pablo Escobar. But ultimately, the Italian state got on top of them. And I think what you see with Raffaele Imperiale is once he was in the hands of the Italian system, he knew that he was going to be done. And all that he could do was to basically, just take it on the chin, because, so, I mean, he's got 15 years. You talked about Taji, like he's still going on about appeals. He's gone through a whole series of sets of lawyers. He's made a series of statements about unfair judicial processes, all of that. And he's going to fight on, but it really looks like he's going to get nowhere. So Imperiale took the other route, and it's funny, of course, omerta, coming from, it's obviously an Italian word, came from that deep culture within Italy of no ratting, let's put it that way. They were the start of that, if you want, but that has steadily overturned in Italy. Because they've just been riddled with informers, just like the Cosa Nostra in the US. So along with his right-hand man, Bruno Carbone, they both have gone witness, basically. Or they have certainly given information behind the scenes. Will they ever be brought to a court to give evidence? We don't yet know. But the two of them sort of worked with authorities. Yeah. And what the report suggests from Italy is that, I said at the beginning of this podcast, there was 200 years in total. So there's all these names of the gang as such, which there's no point in us reading out because nobody will know who any of them are. A lot of them are like from the money laundering side and people with contacts with businesses as well as...
And they've got various sentences from 4 years to 10 years to Bruno Carbone, actually, and Raffaele Imperiale at their 15 and 14 years have got the highest of the sentences. But it looks from what we're getting from the Italian authorities that their evidence helped jail and produce evidence against their own gang.
Oh yeah, I think it was Imperiale turned first, and then the rest of them seem to have turned in because what's the point in fighting it now? Because they had obviously
the boss has gone to the other side.
The boss has gone to the other side, and there was obviously whatever evidence already existed. Carbone, I suppose, was just a slight step below Imperiale. Like, he was also a very significant figure in the European cartel. Like a lot of the other guys that had been done were really the Italian wing of that gang. But Carbone was also somebody who was in Dubai, went on the run to Syria at some point, and seemed to have been kidnapped by Islamic terrorists, basically, as he tried to sort of flee from the authorities through there. But those two guys flipped, and the rest went with them. And a lot of the evidence they gave was obviously to do with the drug shipments, but a lot of it was to do with how they were moving money between, how they were paying South American suppliers, a lot of information about how they were buying gold, what sort of routes they were using to move the drugs around Europe. So it was really interesting stuff, and some of that has appeared in the Italian newspapers. But they gave really comprehensive evidence, and it shows, I suppose, it gives a really good picture of what sort of scale they were operating on, and how worldwide they were, because there was also discussions about moving cocaine as far away as Australia. On one occasion, they seem to have sent in a couple of hundred, I can't remember the figure, something like 40 or 50 million pounds worth of cocaine in on some container into Australia that just disappeared. So they didn't even know. It didn't get seized. It just
The Italians are making a big thing about this island that Imperiale has ceded to them, said to be worth between 60 and 70 million. Did we not discuss before that it actually doesn't quite, did it sink?
Well, what happened was, people will have seen the pictures probably where they built a kind of map of the world, and there was islands. Every country was represented by an island. It was small, obviously smaller scale. And a certain part of it got built, was it? A couple of countries got developed properly and are now being in use, but most of the rest of the world didn't get developed because it started to sink basically. So I think Imperiale was trying to claim his island, Taiwan, was worth 70 million. He bought it, I think, for 14 million in cash. So it just shows you
But the authorities in Italy are now sort of repeating that value, that it is worth
they probably
that,
are. So
right? 60 to 70 million. I'm sure that makes everybody look good. But he also seeded a password or a code into a Bitcoin wallet in which there's about 2 million euros worth of Bitcoin. That seemed to have been the petty cash from what I can see, because they used it to pay for certain elements within the people that were working within the logistics, and it seemed to be just literally used as a sort of a fund that you could dip in and out of. But he's handed that over as well to the Italian authorities. But more interesting, really, apart from the information that's brought down and dismantled his own grouping, is what he has to say to the Dutch and possibly to the Irish in relation to members of the Moroccan mafia and obviously the Kinahan organisation. So we have not yet, the Irish, certainly to our knowledge, spoken to Raffaele Imperiale or sought any information from him. I thought it was interesting that the EncroChat information, which is available, and they mentioned initially both the Sky ECC hack and the EncroChat as there being relevant messages within those 2 million downloads of messages relating to this sort of European super cartel. And they are waiting in Italy for a decision from the Supreme Court as to whether or not any of these messages can be used before the courts. Every different country has sort of handled EncroChat differently. The Dutch have not really put the messages before the court.
No. I mean, they did put some encrypted
They did
messages.
a lot of arrests at the time of it and stuff, and they've put some, but I don't think those messages came out of the EncroChat hack. I don't think they have actually used them yet. They certainly made arrests on the basis of the information, and shut down, famously, that torture chamber out in the forest that still gives me nightmares, with the dentist's chair in it, soundproofed and everything. But we don't yet know if there is messaging within the EncroChat hack relevant to the Kinahan organisation or the dismantling of it.
No, we do know that Imperiale has given a direct statement about El Rico, a Chilean drug supplier, who was part of this European super cartel. He's a Dutch Chilean. So we know from leaks within the Dutch media that Raffaele Imperiale has spoken about him, spoken about how, they were friends and how they hung out together, and he sort of denies being directly in business with him, but he says, we helped each other out here and there, and he gives a detail of where he needed 200 kilos of coke, and El Rico helped him out. So we know that he has spoken about people outside of what is relevant to the Italian process. I think the way it was explained to us was that Imperiale was first going to rat on everybody in Italy, and then after that he had agreed to be made available to the European police forces.
Become a super rat,
an international transnational rat, to use the terminology.
I don't know whether we should use the word rat.
But anyway, so look, he's obviously he has given a detailed statement about El Rico to Dutch police, which has then subsequently emerged in the media. So I presume, one could only presume, the guards would have an opportunity to apply for the same process, that they could question him and ask about him. I think we did hear in El Rico's trial at the time, wasn't there a reference to a video, sort of a video shot with the lads all together? Wasn't there, of El Rico and Raffaele Imperiale and Daniel Kinahan? Wasn't there a couple of selfies or something funny like that? It wasn't a video evidential value, but he was named in that trial as having been in, basically taking selfies of each other.
The lads having a few drinks.
The lads having a bit of a night out.
Yeah.
So we're waiting, aren't we? I mean, we can see that people are being extradited from Dubai.
But these cases completing open up possibilities then for the next chapter, really.
Yeah.
It looked as if the Taggy thing was never going to end in the Netherlands. It was delayed partly by COVID and just the complexities of the trial. But like everything, these things end really quickly, don't they? You think... Do. We were talking about that earlier, and I'm just off the phone actually to a French journalist who has been, he's doing a piece centred on the famous wedding of Daniel Kinahan. And, we were musing earlier that things go quiet. And in particular with this Kinahan, tome, which it now is, things go quiet. And then all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, something happens, and it's huge. Essentially, you're into a whole new
I mean,
story.
you won't. I mean, you'd be unlikely to get this sort of drip feed of leaks before something happens. I think it would be a big bang moment, and I don't think it would be like that you would get. That it would seep out. Of course, it has in other stories before.
Having my ADHD is and that watch isn't either. Every time I sit down, it tells me to stand up.
Yeah, this is
and I've done plenty of exercise and everything.
Yes, so we'll see. It's interesting, and it's not to compare these cases or anything like it, but you did see the political pressure the government exerted on the Dubai authorities in relation to an Irish air hostess, and that political pressure came straight from the Taoiseach. And look, obviously these things are totally different. The only comparison is that it's the Irish government applying pressure to the Dubai police effectively through the media, and it did work. And that woman who's the Dáil heard she was a victim of domestic violence was thankfully allowed to come home. People will have seen that story in the papers. So you can see that political pressure matters when it's put on the Dubai police. The the level of stories about the Kinahans is incredible across the world, as you would know far better than me, who, as your face appears regularly on these international
TV
things.
shows, yeah.
So what I mean is, but we've had all that political pressure, that public pressure. We've seen even in the last couple of weeks, we have again had guards speaking, which you remember they used to never do. You'd never hear them say the word Kinahan for many, many years, but they will speak publicly about it. So there is all that public pressure on the Dubai authorities. But of course, nothing has happened yet.
Mm-hmm. Right, well, we'll leave it at that for the moment.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.